2023. Welcome to you in the room. First of all, if you have a cell phone in the room, turn it off, make sure or silence it if you can. Welcome to you out there in internet land. We're glad to have you with us. The class today, if you're new especially, it's going to run, Guy's going to give about a 60-minute talk. We'll have a 5-minute break, and we'll come back and have a Q&A with Guy, with students in the room, and with you. So if you'd like to write a question either in your chat box or in the question box, depending on what format you're on, and we can help you behind the scenes. And also, if you have any technical problems, go to those same places and we'll do the best we can to help you if you're having any technical problems as well. So once again, welcome to our class today. We're glad you're here. And so I think we'll get started. Today's topic reads, learn to use the law of karma to liberate yourself from fear, worry, and doubt. And here's the first key lesson. Here's why it's impossible to run after, let alone come to possess real peace of mind. The same moment we set out to do so, we disturb it.
Good morning. And welcome to the men and women in the room, and of course, welcome to all of you who are joining us from wherever you are in the world and whatever day or time it may be. We have a deep and fascinating topic to look at together. Something that most of us are unfortunately not just confused about, but conditioned to find in that confusion usually some negative connotation to the idea of karma. When you think of karma, do you go, oh boy? It is almost a law that over time, the world in which we live and experience, which is the result of our deteriorating level of consciousness, will malign and ruin everything that has value from what we would call the past. And one of the big problems that we have to look at when it comes to this idea of karma is that we only understand and see it through the eyes of that consciousness, that as it defines and resists the conditions that come about in our life on a daily basis, looks at those conditions as some kind of punishment or retribution for what we didn't understand or didn't do right, and therefore we resist tooth and nail the very moment of the appearance of the teacher, which we're going to talk about, the nature of this teacher. And in doing that, remand ourselves over to reincarnating as in being the instrument of a nature, of a consciousness that not only knows nothing about itself, but that because of its nature and the level of its being, doesn't want to know anything about itself in spite of how it may protest otherwise. Do you know there's nothing in the universe that can stop you from learning the truth of yourself? Nothing. The universe, in one respect, you could almost say has been created for these lowly little creatures called human beings crawling around on the surface of a planet that wouldn't even know of the human existence if it weren't for human beings destroying it. And yet we agree to live in this submissive state of passive suffering to every situation that doesn't match what we think life on earth is supposed to be like. That's because we don't know what life on earth is for. So before I wax on with an introductory thought, let me get us started. Take a nice deep breath, everybody. I think we'll start someplace and end relatively in the same place, but we'll see how it goes. How many of you know some of these beautiful old aphorisms, these proverbs? Like, for instance, haste makes waste. But how many of you are wasteful? A stitch in time saves. How many of you are endlessly stitching? What are those old sayings pointing to? What do you think those old sayings are about? By the way, almost completely forgotten now because they have no meaning in this world. In this world, haste doesn't make waste. It makes lots of money, so then you can waste your life downstream. What are those things, those ideas? What do they all have in common? And the answer is, they point to karma. Haste makes waste. Well, from where comes the waste? We would say, well, from the haste. But where comes the haste? From a consciousness that is determined it must accomplish and get through with something on time in order to avoid the pain of the karma they're in that moment, and thereby exceed the very karma they're trying to escape with their haste. Stitch in time saves 9. Why is that karma? Because if I was present to something that was telling me, get the damn thing stitched and get on with the more important things in your life, then I would actually take the time to do the job completely, 100%, regardless of anything that was nagging at me, ignoring anything that was trying to push me, because I would understand that if I let something push me, then I am going to be running and trying to escape what's pushing me, and therein I will, like the running of the bulls of Pamplona, for those of you that listen to Inside Timer, I will suffer the karma of running from myself and the karma of knowing I cannot escape a consciousness that tries to complete itself in time. That's karma, isn't it? Every moment of our existence is the expression of and the possibility of completing karma. There is no such thing as bad karma. If you understood that alone, assuming you could understand the nature of karma, which is the point of our talk today, you would never again go, oh no. Oh, what does that mean? What do I have to, I gotta, thinking. All of your thinking is because of karma. How can thinking create and bring about the end of karma when every last thought that you take about tomorrow creates the tomorrow you fear? But we're so in the dark. Are we not? It's almost inconceivable that a man or a woman can live from a consciousness that sows the seeds of its own conflict, and with every seed that it sows of its own conflict, set out to resolve that conflict by sowing more seeds that same consciousness believes will rescue it from its karma. You don't have to be rescued from karma. You have to understand the nature of it. Because now something bad happens, and what's the first thing that takes place? What have we talked about for the last, 2 weeks now, including the talks in the Pines? What have we been talking about? Resistance. We said that it is required for any man or woman who wants to know anything at all about the nature of the divine, rebirth, the indwelling Christ. Anybody who wants to know anything at all about what is good and true has to have a new relationship with resistance. What is the relationship we have with resistance? resistance. Isn't it true? But the truth is, our relationship with resistance isn't actually resistance. Our relationship with resistance is our identification with the negative reactions that come out as a result of unconscious resistance, because that's what all negative reactions are. They are the expression of an incomplete understanding of our own consciousness and the indwelling responsibility that we have to the resistance inherent in its appearance. Nothing that we resist appears by accident. Nothing. So that means that we must, as I've said, have this new relationship with the moment where suddenly, that sudden, no, what's that? Gee, that's not going to work out. What does that mean? Oh, no. And on top of that, what was the other thing we've talked about for the last 2 weeks? Attention, for sure, and you'll see how that connects. But no, I said we have to have a new relationship with resistance, and somehow or other we have to find a way to have peace with the sense of being incomplete. Because isn't that what all resistance is about? Something threatening our idea that something's done, complete, and now don't mess with me. Yes or no? Thinking what, by the way? That the me you're messing with is really me. But you're not really messing with me. The life isn't messing with me. Life has nothing but good in store for me if I understand real life. What life is messing with is what I messed with the last moment I was resistant, and I came up with some image or idea by which to save myself and recomplete myself, so that the moment where I resist, what I'm actually resisting is being my own reactions to what is taking place. That's what I'm actually resisting. Not the event, but the event has become my identification with those reactions. The event has become my identification with those reactions. Yes or no? Too many minutes to do that. You finish the saying for me, what goes around. Why? And yes, in one respect, karma. Because everything is under the law of opposites. So what goes around comes around means that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. We don't understand that the reaction to the active moment is part of the whole of the moment, because we take the reaction to be who we are, what is messed with the whole of our life, and what we have to do accordingly to resolve the opposites. What a beautiful thing it is when you finally even get an inkling. Do you know how I accentuated that word? An inkling, inconceivable. An inkling of where and what you are and within what you live and move and breathe. We never understand the actual idea of karma, which is what cause and effect in play. And does that cause and effect ever stop playing? They're like the endless children of the divine. An endless relationship, cause, effect. Effect becomes cause becomes effect. And there is this beautiful circular motion, somewhat akin to this idea of the yin and the yang, the Tao. Something that is forever in motion, each containing aspects of the other, each becoming the other in a ceaseless flow that you and I are intended to live in. Do you live in a ceaseless flow? No, you live in a ceaseless no. Yes or no? An opportunity to say yes, except for some of you out there who are already negative. So if for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction, what does that mean? If they give way to each other, how can there be a bad action if it gives rise to an effect by which I'm capable of learning something of what acted and accordingly what it acted upon, so that I could actually participate in this thing called karma instead of feel myself punished by it? How many of you are sure? I often tease Patricia, my wife. I often tell her, I say, you know what? back in Atlantis, I must have been the most wicked human being that ever lived. But if you really understand that in one respect there is no moment of which you can be brought into and made aware of its content, if you really understand that there is no moment that isn't the possibility of you realizing what that moment reveals is true about the whole of your life, the whole of your relationship with life, then you would start to look upon every last one of these moments, including, in fact, in some ways accentuated, you'd look at every moment of disturbance as an instant in which, by the grace of God, the teacher has appeared, the lesson is at hand, and if only I will stay present to the lesson in hand. What is the lesson? The lesson isn't that something happened to you. The lesson is that you are part of something that is happening. And that's the most important distinction you will ever come to understand, because you won't always look at life as if that happened to me. It didn't happen to you. Life is happening to life. Light is acting upon light in the form of darkness, but notwithstanding the continual expression of a movement of something divine, bringing what is seemingly apart from it into an integration with it, so that all parts, aspects, all can participate in a broader understanding of this perfection called life. We don't think life is very perfect, do we? Do you understand? You'll never know peace. You can't know it until you understand life is perfect, that God is good, if you want to use those words. Until you understand that God is good, and not just lip service, not just going off to some church or chanting someplace, looking up at a cross on a wall and going, oh God, oh God. Until you understand that God is good every moment of your life, there is no goodness in your life at all. Because good for you is that which corresponds with what you have created. And if what you have created can be maintained, God is good. The moment that it's not, out the door goes God, and my new God is this reaction, this resistance, and it's fear and pain. Please? Yes. What is, we've been talking about it, the source of all psychological pain? What is the source of all psychological pain? Well, now you say resistance, but you can't, you don't know anything about your own resistance. What you know about resistance is the source of your psychological pain, and you don't even know that. Negative reactions are the source of all psychological pain. There is no psychological pain without negative reaction. Please, I'll give you a moment to digest that. You say, no, the moment. You know, I went down the wrong road for 58 years. You're saying that's not the cause of my pain? No. The road you went down doesn't exist anymore, other than in something that was carried over in your consciousness that wants to be identified with it, so it can hate itself for having taken the wrong road. And then it can judge itself and everybody that misled you and all the rest of that garbage. You and I are led by one thing, and the one thing we're led by presently is this unconscious nature. We're not meant to be led by an unconscious nature. We're meant to be led by a relationship with the fact that God is good and never brings anything to us that isn't the road we need to be on in that moment. Not suddenly look for your UPS or your GPS. Not, I call upon my divine GPS. Throw it away. It's broken. The dark web is operating. So negative reactions always speak of some form of resistance, putting things together. If I have a negative reaction, it's because without understanding it, I have had some form of resistance to what has taken place. This is a key, because right now you let negative reactions point outside of you to what you say is defining your reality. I'm saying now we mustn't look outside of ourselves to let the reaction define the moment. We have to realize I've had a reaction. I must become aware of it. And I just use my awareness and bring my attention to the place where the reaction is folding. And where's the reaction unfolding? In this consciousness. So that's the first step. To realize that when I have this resistance to what seems to be folding or unfolding around me, that it belongs to a nature that knows nothing else to do with those moments other than go no. That's all it knows to do. And it says no, listen, its no is the karma of saying yes to being identified with the images that have been threatened by that moment. Are we making sense? Are you following me? So that karma, the moment that I go no, then gives rise to what? My reaction tells me what to do. Then I go talk to you, I get negative, I get worried. And isn't me talking to you, getting negative or worried, karma? Yes or no? It's not just creating karma in the moment, it is the karma of not understanding the reason the moment took place the way it did. So that you can say karma feeds karma, but not because it's bad for you, but so that gradually the imbalance in this consciousness between what is actually unfolding and what it's acting on can become more and more apparent. Only for us, the more apparent becomes the karma, the more we push against it because we don't want to have any more problems than we've already got. And not wanting to have any more problems that we've already got does what? Gives me more problems. In Proverbs, there are these sayings, these beautiful ideas, but basically it says, if you understand the ways of God, you'll understand justice. Everybody is rewarded that which is his or her due. Now, I know I'm going to lose most of the people out there when I talk like this. Everybody is rewarded that which is or her due. What are you saying to me? How can it be my due that my parents were abusive? How can it be my due that the world is coming unglued? How can it be my reward that I've grown into be this bitter, irritable person, which in the heart of me I'm so beautiful and loving? That's what we say. I'm a religious person. How can it be my due that I'm persecuted like I'm persecuted? If God loved me, this couldn't happen. Those ideas are your karma. But they're not even yours. You came into a world that was so backloaded with these broken ideas that it almost became impossible for a human being to reconcile what they've been fed and told is their right and their due, and then run into a world that just constantly denies that which they're sure they're owed. And the more I'm sure I'm owed what is my righteousness deserves, I become more what? Resistant. And the point in time where that karma, that action, that justice, karma is justice. Justice is what? Even. Justice is the ceaseless balancing of the scales. That's what that old image is about. Although now it kind of looks like this. And you know why it looks like that? Because human beings have begun to decide for themselves through their legalities and moralities, through all of that business and their religious, ridiculous identification with its fanaticism. Human beings have twisted the idea of justice until, as Mr. Howard used to say, they shoot the arrow and then they draw the bullseye around it. It doesn't belie the fact that there is a justice that sits underneath all things. All things. And that justice never stops working in the favor of those who want to be righteous. And righteous doesn't mean like we think, like most of us are, righteous. Righteous means just. That's what a just human being is, a righteous human being. They are on the right-hand side of life, on the side of relationship with the divine. That's what all of these old ideas mean. Our responsibility is to understand, how can I have any wish to look at the situation when my first wish is to get rid of anything that challenges what I say is right? Because everything runs into what I say is right. How about you? Yes or no? So how is justice? How is karma justice? You still interested? We need to see a bigger picture, which is what I like to bring into these talks as best I can. There is no peace outside of being a participant in the ceaseless unfolding of a bigger picture. And the bigger picture isn't the home you hope to move into one day. That's not the bigger picture. The bigger picture isn't you losing 50 pounds and even though you're 108 years old, finding some 12-year-old to love you. That is not the bigger picture. Oh, Barbara says, ooh, what do you think you're doing all the time? What do you think everything you do, every form of trying to protect yourself from a moment you don't want is because you know the bigger picture and God doesn't? Every form of it, no exception. Every form of worrying, every form of taking thought about how am I going to get this to work, every last one is you acting God. Instead of understanding the very purpose of that moment to bring that up in you was so that you could understand, mother of pearl, I guess I'm not God at all. Is there a God? If there is, what does God want with me? What is the purpose of this life? It can't be to have people like me, because I don't even know anybody that I like. Everybody has to understand there is a bigger picture. Here's the bigger picture. Every valley in time becomes a mountain. Every mountain in time becomes an ocean. Every ocean in time becomes a desert. Every desert in time becomes the valley. Every valley the mountain. And if you had a way to speed up the evolution of the planet, you would see that the plates never stop moving underneath each other, that all of that is in a constant ferment due to the activity of the celestial relationships it has, constantly moving, everything becoming something else, everything active becoming something passive, everything passive becoming something active. And a ceaseless act of the rebirth of all that is acted on, so that in being acted on, what is passive can bring forth another and new possibility in itself and in its relationship to the broader world. Yes? So can you see there is what we would call an inevitable, you might write the words down, I couldn't find better ones, an inevitable equalization between all things. Yes or no? And justice is what oversees that inevitable equalization. We see these great throes, we're not even aware of them. Why do civilizations rise and crash? Why? Because eventually all civilizations being largely the beginning with maybe a new good idea, such as what happened with the idea of the United States, is a brilliant idea. Brilliant idea. Freedom for all. True democracy, justice for all, everyone treated equally, beautiful idea, and now look at it. The principle hasn't been corrupted, but the instruments of it have corrupted the idea of it and sowed and manifested that into this world, so that this world, like every other world, will collapse under the weight of its own misunderstanding. It has to. It's inevitable, if you have any sense of history at all. Just as in scale, you and I are a civilization. You never think of yourself as being a civilization, but I'm a civilization. I am the organization of a set of different bodies brought together under a different system to organize and keep it itself in place. And this system is intended to go forward, to develop into something that does not end when the body that organized itself does, but that continues forth the principles and the powers behind it. So that as a human being, I can begin, if I'm capable of doing so, recognizing that this is not the end of life, my body, this understanding, it's the beginning of another body and another understanding and another equalization in another world that I already belong to. If I can understand my relationship to this world, this mind, this conditioned nature, and all that it is so thoroughly conditioned by, that only knows to do one thing with resistance, which is what? Resist it. Didn't you always want to be part of a big show? Come on. Didn't you? Look, give me a leading role. I know I can do it. I can carry it off. I may need an understudy in case I faint before I go on, but I'm sure I can do it. We're part of this action. If everything is constantly balancing itself, and I am not just a part of this world and everything in it, but I am in fact placed in a very unique position of being able to understand there's also supposed to be a balance between heaven and earth. Actually, not supposed to be, there is one. So that what is active, heaven, timelessness, acting on what is passive, the earth, is intended to bring about a constant atonement and reconciliation, thy will on earth as it is in heaven. And I'm meant to be not just part of that, but I'm created to actually facilitate that somehow. Because there is a divide, there is a gulf, although it's connected between that which is invisible and timeless and that which is in time and caught in it. That I am meant somehow or other to be a bridge between these worlds would be the constant balancing of these worlds within me as a functionary, as a part of that process. Imagine in the scale of things, if you could, if everything is bridged that way and everything is ceaselessly balancing itself, which it is, in a scale far too great for the mind to comprehend, then that means that somewhere out there in these distant great galaxies, that they're not somewhere out there, but that what's taking place is acting on me through my system, my universe, my solar system, my relationship to the earth. All of that in a wave, in a movement, acting on me. And just as it does with everything in scale, when something is active, acts on something passive, the great balancing is that that which is passive responds to what acts on it and yields to what acts upon it, so that it forms an integrated body with the action and the passive, made into a new human being, a new creature. Whether that's actually a son. You know, there's no difference between the creation of a son and the creation of a soul. None. And no one is there doing it. But we are created and entitled, in a certain sense of the word, as human beings to participate in the creation of the Son. S-O-N as in Christ within, and S-U-N as becoming an instrument that is the body of fusion instead of friction and fission. Why? Because it's being integrated. But can anything be integrated into me if the moment I meet it, it doesn't want what I want? And what happens to the possibility of that integration in the moment? What happens? Resistance. I think I'll just stop for a moment. The shock waves go by, and then we'll pick it up as soon as you come back into your body. If you've understood what I have said so far, have you grasped this picture? Yes. What's going on? The whole of creation, an expression, in some respects, according to our capacity, a visual revelation of the ceaseless rebirth of all that has ever been created by the action of something upon what has been created for the purpose of bringing about a new creation. Why aren't I a new creation? One day you'll ask that in earnest. Why is every time a fear comes, why is every time that happens, I do the same thing, have the same thoughts? Why do I live as though my whole life depends upon what happens the next minute, when the whole of my life is the moment I'm in? And if you can grasp that idea, then you should at least begin to think to yourself, in my heart of hearts, I can know that's true. I need a new relationship with resistance. Yes? I need to have a new sense of being at peace with what is incomplete, because I'm starting to see that whatever I think is really incomplete isn't complete at all. It's just it's a phase. I never thought of using that word before, but it's not inaccurate. Everything is in flux. Everything is in a phase. So the moment that strikes something in me that resists the moment and gets negative, it turns what that moment is into something that justifies that which is frozen in time. But do you think of yourself as being frozen in time? This was a big idea that I was thinking about as I was working on this material. Yes or no, what is active acts upon what is passive. If what is passive doesn't respond properly to what is active, then what is passive is not integrated and brought into a new relationship with life as part of the life being revealed. Instead, it reincarnates itself and carries itself over as some twisted form, I might add, of what was intended to be transformed. Please? What is active, we could call the Word, the presence, the divine. What is active, timeless. What is active acts always on one thing: the past. What is active wants to bring what is passive into something that is greater than the sum of the parts, which is the experience, if you will, of that unity between these opposites that seem diverse, when in truth the disparity isn't that they're other than each other, it's that they're becoming each other. Every resistance I have to what the moment brings. Have any of you figured out to change what the moment brings yet? Because if you have, you come sit here, please. I'll throw myself at your feet. You can't change what is. For one thing, you can't know what is with your mind. Because what is. There's a big quote for you. Like Jimmy Durante. What is. It's everything being married into everything in different levels and scales, in different orders of time, bringing about different orders of creation accordingly. That's what is. And somehow or other, God, I don't know how it happens, I am created to know that. And not just know it here, but to understand it so thoroughly, I become a participant in what is in God's life. But is it possible for me to become a part of what is if every moment of my life I meet every moment knowing what should be? It's impossible, isn't it? Bring up the second key lesson. This is probably a good time for it. This will be on your screen at home. You can copy it, download it. And if you have a replay here, I would suggest you get it and write it down. Here is the unseen cause of the great circle of human conflict and suffering. We unconsciously resist the appearance, realization, and hence the reconciliation of our collective and individual karma accordingly. In other words, argue it as we may, our unseen resistance to unwanted moments in life is the same as rejecting a celestial invitation to be reunited with the divine. Who in their right mind would refuse an invitation from the divine to be reunited with what is divine in nature? And in that reunion, not just atone for all that I represent as a passive instrument of this perfect word on this planet, but to be brought into its perfection and all that is incomplete in me as a result of the past carried over in a conditioned mind, all of that to be completed. Can you see one of the problems, one of the things we could call karma, very simply, is that you think you know what it means to be complete. I was thinking about this driving down here with Patricia. What seems to be such a monumental task. I don't think to myself, I know what to be complete is, but you bring me some moment and I know that's not part of it. Isn't it true? So that means that somewhere in this dark, in this unconscious nature, which in one respect is literally primordial, but on the other hand is an unaware participant in the formation of creatures, of content of consciousness over time that has accrued and become solidified, so that without knowing it, I carry this forward with me everywhere I go, and it's touched by these moments for the purpose of what? So that I can know there's something wrong with the moment, or so that I can realize I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I got here, because we want to use the word I. I don't know how this happened to me. How did I become convinced that I have to rush? How in the name of God did that happen to me? How did it happen that I have to think to myself, if I don't pull this off, what are people going to think about me? If my appearance isn't right, certainly something bad is on its way. How in the name of God did a man or a woman become like that? Worshiping money, worshiping powers and possessions. And don't say you don't, because every moment of your life is spent in consideration of the content of what you call your life. And this isn't a judgment. How in the world did I become a human being who hates anybody that judges me, but I myself am the perfect judge of all things, including myself? How did that happen? How did I not see it? And I know the answer. There was nobody there to see it. The light that dwells in the darkness had not been brought forth. It couldn't do its work until a place is made for it in the stable of this unconscious creature. And then for whatever reason, because it is attractive, meaning the divine attracts the divine. What is godly attracts what is godly. Please understand that if you attract into your life things that you hate, what you have attracted has been attracted by something that was already creating, willing to hate whatever didn't match what it wanted. You can't serve two masters. You'll love one and despise the other. Is that not an example of karma? Please, do you see it with me? Is that not karma? I hate this moment. Why? Because it's the opposite of the moment that I imagined it should be. Is that not karma? My identification with what has been imagined by an unconscious nature. And how would I know that that karma, that is justice, unless I was willing to allow what is just to reveal and allow me to participate in the moment of justice? Conscious suffering is participation in justice. That's what conscious suffering is. And there is no other definition of it. Because I don't think it's just when things don't happen the way I want them to. Do you? Will I ever know this justice? Will I ever know this relationship between these perfectly active and passive forces producing and reconciling with each integration a new form of itself if I'm not myself one of those new forms, a new man? think I'll stop a minute again. Can you feel this? So something's interfering. Yes or no? Now here's one of the things that's interfering. How much time I got? How many of you, as a rule, are perfectly innocent of anything bad that happens? Well, what else would my resistance prove? Doesn't resistance prove innocence? Resistance doesn't prove innocence. It proves identification with the past. And resistance and identification are synonymous. Are they not? Can you see it? Can I be identified with anything other than an image or a belief or an idea? Is there identification outside of division? Or is identification by definition division? By definition, being identified with something is to be apart from what I'm identified with. Being apart has karma has a karmic effect. That's what we are, the unwitting experience of the unconscious karma produced by a consciousness that's asleep to itself. So the solution to the moments I don't want isn't to try to get more of this and more of that and get rid of these people and go here whenever I can, get away from that whenever it's possible. That's not the solution to this conflict. The solution is in the moment where the resistance appears, to recognize that, oh, I never knew. You know, what's the saying? When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Who is the teacher? The teacher is the moment that cannot be separated from the resistance to it. That's the teacher. And no wonder I'm still in kindergarten. I'll give you a moment to think about it. If you went to school and you heard your name of your teacher was Mr. Resistance, Mrs. Resistance, and then everything that you presented to them, they said it's not good enough, you have to do more, something else is required, how long would you want to stay in that classroom? And you know why you'd want to bail that classroom? Because you think it's your job to finish the job. If you've understood anything at all, it's not your job to finish the job. It's your job to participate in the work. And the work isn't your work, it's God's work. And I love that it's God's work as long as I get all that I want all the time. I'm right, God is great. Inshallah. But can I say God is great in the moment where I feel that fear come into me? When I look out, and by the way, you, who you really are, never looks into the future. Ever. And certainly not to establish or define an identity accordingly. You and I, actually, that's why, look, sometimes I know, we talk about a new relationship with resistance. Yeah, that's great. Until no new relationship here. This is impossible. Look at my face. This is impossible. I often try to say this in different ways. You know what's impossible? Is remaining a sleeping human being. It seems impossible to a mind that measures and weighs what it believes it must do and go through in order to achieve what it imagines it must achieve to be free. Freedom isn't an achievement. It's a realization. It's a relationship. It is the result of participating in the revelation and the resistance accordingly to recognize, until I understand the nature of this resistance and agree as best I'm able to do so, to not look out at the world as the source of the suffering, but to realize the suffering I'm experiencing is because the past in me is pushing away everything that is asking, would you like to be reborn? Would you like to be a new man? Would you like to be a new woman? Now, if the moment showed up, I hate to do this to you. No, I won't do it to you. It would be too much. Yes or no, everything is taking place exactly the way it's supposed to take place. Now, you say that now, but you go out and, damn, why is it so hot? My favorite restaurant doesn't have a table. Look at my face. I'm the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. What's happened to me? I used to be able to climb a mountain. Now I feel like the mountain's on my back even when I want to get out of a chair. What has happened to me? Anybody identifying here? Every time you and I try to avoid an uncomfortable situation, how many of you are always try to see, please understand, I mean nothing but the best. You're not trying to avoid an uncomfortable situation. You are the uncomfortable situation. See if that goes viral. But I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to do. I'm sitting in my chair, I'm in my car, I'm at work someplace, I'm talking to somebody. And my whole life, all I've known to do is to become the instantaneous instrument of something that tells me something happening here shouldn't be happening. Bring up the third key lesson, please. This is one of my favorite of all times. But you should really contemplate this, really memorize it. What does it read? Read it out loud. Nothing negative has happened to you until you wish it wasn't happening. Buddha would love that, by the way. You see what it speaks of? It doesn't speak of division. It speaks of an unseen entanglement of all of these energies and how the resistance creates the condition unwanted, but how the unwanted condition is there to reveal the resistance. And until it's used that way, nothing can happen except you're going to keep having moments that you wish weren't happening. You're actually created to be at peace with everything that's happening. Do you know why you're created to be at peace with everything that's happening? Because what's happening is the will of the divine. You say, that can't be the will of the divine. Look at the world. The world in its negative, corrupt form is the karmic expression of the consciousness that created it, and you and I are a part of that consciousness. Deny it if you like. You say, well, it's too big of a task. One day as you get further downstream and you realize your entire life is meant to be spent serving this relationship between what is divine and between what is active and passive, what is timeless, what is in time. You get a little further downstream and you'll start to realize this work is never done. See, right now you're always trying to figure out how to get it done. Let me just get on with this spiritual business, get reborn, and then I'm going to go make $1 billion. Because then I'll have $1 billion and I'll be reborn. What could be better than that? Yeah, that's what you think. You can lie all day long if you want. Or at least let me protect the whatever I've got at all costs. Can you protect a fear without creating karma? Is it possible? Looking for or otherwise trying to create a sense of peace and security before its time is karma. Write it down if you want. Looking for or otherwise trying to create a sense of peace and security before its time is karma. Isn't it? Do you see it? I'm seeing confusion. Look, here I am, home alone. Good title, isn't it? Home alone. Oh no. And what happens the minute there's oh no? I am more clever than this. I can plan like nobody can plan. If there was a who's who for planning, I'd be in the book. Because I've always figured out how to get away from what I don't like. Haven't you? So I start to try to get away from what I don't like. The moment I try to escape my own reaction, I have created karma as the result of avoiding karma. Are you enjoying this at all? Some of you look like you're in the dentist's office. There's an old passage, I don't know whether it's in the Quran or one of the other older scriptures. It says, and whoso doeth good an atom's weight will then see it, and whoso doeth ill an atom's weight will see it then. Whoso doeth good an atom's weight will then see it, and whoso doeth ill an atom's weight will see it then. It's an interesting juxtaposition of the words. Do good, then see it. Do ill, see it then. Good, instantaneous. So is the ill, but I have to wait to see it. And that's the problem, is that I think the ill has nothing to do with my karma. It's everybody else's karma being dumped on me at the time, and I, as this good human being, just have to carry it with me. Write this down, if you will. Avoiding life lessons not only creates new karma, but ensures our old karma will remain unjustified. Avoiding life lessons not only creates new karma, but ensures our old karma will remain unjustified. What is karma? Justice. Say it. What is karma? Justice. So does that mean the moment I don't want is unjust? I mean, we think it is, given what a marvelous person I am. All the sacrifices I've made, oh my God. Does God know everything that I've poured into this life, given myself up for all of these things? Am I whining properly? Don't say you don't think like that. You can't have a resentment towards another human being. You can't try to push away some moment that you feel is there because you're not owed it and others don't owe you something. You and I are owed nothing. Do you know why we're owed nothing? Because we have been given everything. And what more can I be given than the possibility of participating as a conscious being in creation itself as part of that creative action and the passive creation that is acted upon, that it can be reborn. There are no bells and whistles, no parades that come to a man or a woman who is reborn. None. They celebrate in the silence of the company of the celestial forces that allow that to take place. And no one knows it has happened for them. And nor would they ever say to another human being, it has happened. You tell somebody that you listen to somebody tell you they've been reborn, you're listening to a blathering idiot telling you lies about something they've imagined into existence and that they're identified with. Be with them one time when their toast is burned and ask them, where is God? I think I'll stop for a moment. Here's the exercise. You ready? All continuous negative states indicate an incomplete understanding of the moment. An incomplete understanding of the moment born of the incomplete nature involved in it. That nature cannot complete itself. It must allow itself to be completed. That's the exercise. use the resistance as the revelation it's intended to be, instead of refusing the revelation because the resistance is telling you something terrible has just happened to you. God doesn't bring evil upon those who love him. Actually, God doesn't bring evil on any human being. The evil that we suffer is our own doing, born of our own imagination, and then the attempt to escape what we've imagined into existence and creating the subsequent karma that follows it. Is that enough for the morning? Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and have our dialogue.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Now it's time for our question and answer time with Guy. Before we get there, I just have a quick reminder that all these free online talks are sponsored by the nonprofit Life of Learning Foundation here in Southern Oregon, and Guy is the director. If you'd like to help us, please know that every donation you make, no matter the size, helps us reach out and help others around the world, many of them like yourselves. And as you probably noticed, you've been around for a while, things are very inexpensive here. We want to be able to provide these ideas and these truths as far-reaching as possible and make it available to anyone who'd like to participate. So if you'd like to help us, and thank you for those who are already helping us, you can make a donation at any time at guyfinley.org/donate. And you can do that now, and there's a link in your chat box. And I'm not sure about YouTube or Facebook, but there's probably a way to make that same donation. You can go there anytime, as a matter of fact. Just put it in your browser, guyfinley.org/donate. All right, I think we're ready to get started. We can bring Guy on. Guy, do you have anything to say before we get started?
Nope.
Okay. So if you're on GoToWebinar, you can raise your hand in the queue. You just click on that little hand icon. If you'd like to write a question on YouTube or Facebook, you can do that in the chat box. You can also do that in the question box here. So go ahead and raise your hand. We don't have any written questions, but we do have Tony in the queue. I'm going to see if her hand was up for a little while. Let's see if Tony wants to speak. I'm going to unmute you, Tony. There you go.
Hi, Guy, you are on fire today. You are on fire. It's what makes me want to come and meet you in person.
We would all love to see you, Tony, as we would all the men and women who join us from distance. But that's wonderful, Tony. I'm glad that you found something worthwhile in the material today.
So you say, I am the Son, S-O-N, and I am the Son, S-U-N.
Correct.
It just vibrates with me. And I'd like you to expand on the need for this quasi-individualism to contribute to the whole of the sonship, integrity. I don't think enough of us realize our unique role to the whole of who we are, because I can't deny my uniqueness or nonconformity, should I say, in order to
I got it.
Do my 2 cents.
I got it. So please, this is not facetious. Did any of you grow your own hair? I'm 74 years old, and my wife was cutting my hair yesterday, and it said, "My God, it's so dark. Why is it so dark?" I'm unique. For whatever reason, these hair follicles, they just want to keep going. I didn't do that. Do you think Jesus thought he was unique in the sense of some individual special purpose, or was he exactly the opposite in his humility? Why? Because he understood no one is good save the Father. That relationship of humility speaks to being in awe of the magnificence of the Son, S-O-N, S-U-N, the divine within us. That's what it speaks to. Any human being who takes credit for anything is a discredit to the possibility of being a conscious human being. What a delicious, and Tony, I'm still talking to you, but I built this company. I made this money. I. What is karma? Oh my God, what happened to my company? Oh my God, my hair is gone. And I took so long to create it. I brushed it every day for 48,000 years and it was supposed to stay in place. I know so much about God. I can quote scripture. I'm a genius. And then I see I'm not genius. I'm the goose stuck between something and God only knows what when life doesn't go the way I want it to. See, taking credit is karmic, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, Tony, yes, and I know it flies in the face of it. One day people have to understand through their own work, because I'm the first to say it, nobody is unique as Tony in the world. Just as nothing is unique as a single leaf on a tree. It's just that the uniqueness of Tony is that she can understand she is a leaf on a tree of life. And participate in that life as a leaf, absorbing, taking in what creates in her own world another order of existence, and so forth and so on. So, Tony, that's what I have to say to you this morning. Nice to hear your voice.
All right, Guy, we have Joni in the queue, and we have 2 written questions. So let's take one of the written questions and we'll go to Joni. This one is from Jill on Facebook. And Jill asks, I watched negative states telling me to react to this and that. I stood there. Then I was driving to work and I didn't stand there. They surrounded my mind. I felt consumed by eyes.
Yes.
Is being overwhelmed a trick of the mind?
Yes. I don't know if you listened to the talks that I just gave over the last week or so, the talks in the Pines. We actually talked about it as seemingly impossible and contradictory as it is. What am I overcome by in any given moment? Resistance. My own resistance. No, I'm overcome by these voices. I'm overcome by these fears. Well, what are these voices and these fears other than that consciousness in its resistance to anything that's threatening its position, trying to deal with or get rid of them accordingly? So in the end, I am overcome by my ignorance of this resistance that always seeking to define something so that it can be apart from what it has defined. That's what it does. I separate things. Familiar I is separation. Real I is unity. This thing lives so that it can talk and resist anything that doesn't match its idea. And the more it talks about what's attacking it, the more attacked it feels. The more attacked it feels, the more it resists what's attacking it. The more it resists what's attacking it, the more it comes up with plans to resolve the pain in being attacked. It's attacking itself. You just have to get to know well enough those moments so that you can bear, Jill, not just putting that in its proper place in the moment, where, as you said, something negative state was telling me to react to this, and I was aware enough of it at all. But by the time I got to work, I was being bludgeoned by these thoughts and feelings. Well, do you think those? Do you think the thoughts and feelings go away because you catch them one time? Didn't Pharaoh promise to set the Jews free, and at the last moment changed his mind? There is a parting of a Red Sea. But you're not the one who parts it. And however that story went down, it wasn't Moses who parted it either. It represents a parting of the right hand and the left hand. It represents a parting of the natures. And only when there is a parting of the natures through the commitment to understanding that I am created to be free, to have my own land as it would be the promised land, only when that is abundantly clear do the seas part. And by the way, that wasn't, the stories, they're just stories in one respect. They don't end like you watch a movie and go, oh, I love that movie. Look, they're walking off into the sunrise, holding each other's hand. And she's going to have a baby, and they made $1 million, and they got away with everything. Oh, I love that. What you don't understand, nothing ends. But everything can be completed. Doug.
All right, Guy, here's Joan.
Hello from Buffalo.
Is that the buffalo from Hello?
Yes, yes, Guy, what a talk! This was such a great talk. I've been writing and writing, trying to get everything down. When you first said there's no such thing as bad karma, I was kind of like not sure about that. But then when you said karma is perfect justice, I realized it just clarified it. Of course, you think karma is bad if you're afraid of justice, but in God's perfect system and His perfect love, there is justice. And if you understand that, then of course there's no bad karma.
Exactly.
And you've been talking about what is active and passive for so long, and it was always kind of a gray area for me.
Yeah.
Today, when you said what is active acts on what is passive, if what is passive doesn't respond, it has to go through reincarnation, and that just clarified everything for me. So
I'm glad.
I understand that now.
I'm glad you can be a little light in Buffalo.
Yeah, it's raining like crazy here today.
Oh, it's beautiful here in New Hampshire.
Yeah. So I've heard. Thank you, Guy.
Okay, Joe.
Hello to everyone.
All right. Well, Pat's coming up to the stage. If you can put it all together, if you see it at all, and not with thinking about it, it was Jesus's karma to meet that moment when the will of the divine said, this is what you have to do. I don't want to do this. So you have this idea somehow that it's all this beautiful moment. It's all beautiful in its entirety. So don't think to yourself, karma's perfect justice. Oh, and here's this moment. Oh, I love this moment. One day you'll gag on your own imagination, I hope. But here's this moment, and I understand my relationship to it. And I understand what I must do without knowing exactly what's going to come out of this moment. Because if I knew exactly what was going to come out of it, I'd just say, heck yeah, this is great. You can't do that, but you can understand the greatness of the consciousness of the divinity that made that possible and agree to enter into it. And on the other side, when you are made new, then you see the greatness and you're more and more faithful in it. You're on, Patricia.
I had a karma experience yesterday, for sure. But it really connects with something I saw last week. Last week, I saw I wouldn't have a problem unless I really wanted something. And when I gave up, knowing that I couldn't have this want, the problem, of course, disappeared. I actually tried to talk about that in my last talk on the online study group. But this is a little different situation, and it shows how memory or imagination affects what we expect and then have a reaction to. Guy got some new sound equipment in his office, and I was going to take his old sound equipment to recycle. That's his key word. Now, last time I took something to recycle, it was a TV, an old TV. There was a man that met me at the recycle place. I opened my trunk, he picked it up, and he took it and recycled it. Very friendly, very nice man. Well, this time I go in this huge place, and I couldn't find a sign that said recycling. And some poor man at a booth there that was hot and overworked, and he had like 24 cars, 2 lines of about 12, 15 trucks, not cars, waiting for him. He told me, get in line, get in line. He was yelling at me. And I said, I just want to recycle. Get in line. He was like really mean to me, and that doesn't work for me. So I get in line, and behind all these trucks loaded with garbage, and I'm there for about 45 minutes to an hour. I get up to him, and he says, it goes in the trash. It's all trash. And it's $22.
$22.51.
$22.51 or something like that. And I looked at him. Not only was he going to throw it all away, there was no recycling going on, but I had to pay. And that doesn't suit me either. And so I gave him a look, and he said, don't give me attitude. And he says, I'm working like a dog out here. And he was. And you know, this is the thing. I felt, as I waited for that hour, and I saw several people get angry with him, I felt sorry for him. I knew he was working hard. There should have been 4 men out there, not him. And so, but I still was affected by how I was treated, and the image didn't fit the last time I went. So I had the image of going in, and I know that had a part of what Guy's talking about today.
Yes. May you never think to yourself that you're a good person. So Patricia had speaking rather euphemistically, a rough morning. So she was filled with what? Do you think just because you don't speak it, you don't radiate it? Isn't the radiation of negativity an invitation for others to become negative with you? And then you think that what's wrong with them is that they're not good like you who want to recycle things. I'm not creating an ideal here. What I'm trying to get you to see is that there's always a bigger picture, always a bigger picture. And that you get from people what justice requires. Not meaning that they should be right or wrong, up or down, but that you get from them what they help you see in yourself. If you respond properly to what you see in yourself when you're around somebody that's in great pain or negative, then it is you that are reintegrated into a new understanding and give them the chance to see themselves, which they can't when you are returning karma for karma, conflict for conflict. Over to you, Doug.
All right, Guy, we have a question here from Nikki, and then we have Stephen in the queue. We'll read the question here first.
Okay.
It says, very powerful information. Thank you for being so clear. When I appreciate and accept my role and responsibility and how messed up everything is, what if any action is available to me to turn things around if there is continued harm? In other words, accelerated government controls, digital banking controls, others in authority controlling my medical decisions. Hope this makes some sense.
It does. Nikki, I think I'll answer this in a different way. I was raised, and you fill in the blank, a Jew, a Christian, Presbyterian, a Catholic, a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Hindu. I think I covered all the bases. And I was raised in that religion by parents who knew nothing at all about religion. And I went to synagogues and churches and mosques and monasteries. And in the case of the speaker, I went to all of those places. And I met individuals who know nothing about what they were teaching. But I didn't know who else to be other than the one that seemed the best to me. So I became the best me I could be, given what I was given to see. I become identified with being a Hindu, a Baptist, a Jew, a Christian. And then according to the religious ideology, I become a Democrat, a Green Party person, a Republican, or something unknown. Ambivalent, resistant to everything because it's stupid. So without knowing it, I'm like a hermit crab. Over time, this consciousness pastes all things upon itself so that when it thinks about itself, it can know who and what it is, given what it has pasted on itself. But it never pasted anything on itself. No human being, a conscious human being, would agree to be conditioned, let alone identify with anything. So now I'm walking around, I'm lugging all this stuff around. I don't know I'm lugging all this stuff around until I watch TV, and suddenly accelerated government controls, digital banking, medical decisions being made against me. I was thinking about this. I don't know if there's anybody in the line, but yesterday I was thinking to myself about this question. And the conclusion I reached was that somehow or other, in some strange world, some dark god decided to bring all the comic book characters to life on a single planet. And why a comic book character? Because each and every one knows exactly their role. How can there be such a divide in human consciousness that you will sit and hate me for my beliefs and I'll hate you for your beliefs? And how can I hate somebody for their beliefs unless my belief is they're completely wrong? And why in the name of God can't they see how wrong they are? Don't you ever think that to yourself? How in the name of God can these people sit and watch that news? Because that's propaganda. This, on the other hand, isn't propaganda. This is purporting and proposing all the things that are good and true that the idiots on the other side just don't understand. On the other hand, I do wish I had bought $50 worth of digital coins thousands of years ago. You have to get sick and tired of trying to figure out who and what you are based on a position that was established in you before you even took a body. Did you ever hear Buddha talking about how to resolve all the conflict between the warring nations? It said that Judas, which by the way is a completely misinterpretation of his life, it said that Judas was expecting Christ to finally bring a war to the Romans and take Jerusalem back so that everybody would be free. Jesus never spoke of war, never spoke of enmity, of enmity. Have no enemies. Do not oppose what opposes you. And then I know what happens in your mind. But God, if I just sit back, what's going to happen to the world? The world is the way it is because men and women have stepped forward trying to pursue and believe that the way to peace is to punish people into accepting my way. This world is done. It'll start over, God willing, as it always has. But how it starts over depends on how you start over here and now. That's how it starts over with me, with you. With understanding that all of my ambitions, all of my enemies, all of my problems, all of my fears, that every last part of that is part of the corruption that I'm trying to change through a consciousness that was corrupted before I even came into it, before it came into me. You'll be at peace when you know that is true, because it means that you're not avoiding the condition. It means that you're entering into it at its base. And you have to pay the price of that. And there's no one good doing that, by the way. I can hear Mr. Howard in my head. Those do-gooders, he used to call them do-gooders. Don't do good, be good. If you're good and you have that being, what is good will take place within you and around you effortlessly. I hope that helps, Nikki. I know it wasn't what you were looking for, but that's the answer. On we go.
All right, Guy, we have Stephen in the queue, and we have 3 written questions. We're at the top of the hour, so.
Let's do Stephen, and then I'll drink some Powerade.
Okay, here's Stephen.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Guy.
Hi, Stephen.
I just, these just light me up so much, these talks, but one of the big keys for me just was formulated by a few things that you said was, there's no big parade, there's no big, and but I wanted to share one of the big differences. There's no parade for it, but I used to stop at the debate, like the don't wanna. I used to think, like I was taught that my whole life, was that if you don't want to do something, it's somehow violating your inner character or something, your gut. And I was like, I fought with that for years to try to make well, what do I really want? And then you sit there and debate that forever. And thanks to this work, I'm seeing beyond it now. I'm starting to feel into everything that you're saying, and I can't live it yet. I'm just amazed at how the distance between the embodiment of these ideas and the concept is. But I have a chance, and I'm so thankful for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now you begin to understand from the bottom up the idea that I am in this world, but I'm not of it. Doesn't mean I shirk my responsibility, but I understand my first responsibility. Good, Stephen. Let's go on, Doug.
All right, the first of these questions is from Rebecca. She has asked, does Guy have a suggested reference for biblical symbolism, particularly regarding the Aramaic language? The explanations offered through Guy resonates within me, and I'd like to be able to do more self-study.
Start with the Strong's Concordance. That's the best place to start. There have been innumerable books written, most of which are garbage. But there are some men and women who are literally scholars of the relationship between the ancient languages and their present misunderstood form. But were I you, I would always look for the oldest possible. And let me be clear, when I use the word explanation, when a man or a woman interprets something, particularly in the ancient languages, whether it's the Aramaic or the Sanskrit, they are calling upon the relationship they have with what is wise to bring the wisdom of the past into the present moment. As would any true teacher, that's what he is a conduit. But don't trust what anybody says in and of yourself. Find the relationship you have with that understanding and bank on that and contemplate that, and then it'll grow and it'll become your own. And if it doesn't, it's useless. On we go, Doug.
Next is a question from Beatrice.
Wait. And you always have to be willing to be wrong. Always have to be willing to see how incomplete was what you thought was a complete understanding. That's a mandatory state, because until you're not clinging, resistance is clinging to the identity derived from your knowledge. Okay, Doug.
Okay, from Beatrice, how does karma work when a person gets, let's say, in a car accident as a victim without causing it? Or myself going to the first eye surgery and the surgeon making an impactful mistake with future bad consequences? Is this caused by the inherited past or of ancestors, or else Something else?
Everything, Beatrice. It's a whole lifetime of interaction, study. Imagine for a moment, how many of you know the sun is pretty big? Yes? And then from out of the sun, a little spark comes out. The little spark goes, what was that? Why did that happen to me? Why was I cast into space? How come I'm cooling off? I seem to be headed towards another planet at light speed. Am I going to die there? Can you imagine some little spot doing that? That's you and me. You know, you've always wanted to be haven't you always wanted to be magnificent, big, beautiful, powerful, important? Yes or no? You have no idea. But it's not your importance. It's not your power. It's not your magnificence. You're part of something magnificent. So when these things happen, it may be happening, and it is happening. Somebody rear ends you in a car. Their karma is they just ran into you, isn't it? Don't make their karma your karma. How would you make their karma your karma? I hate what's wrong with stupid people? Balance, 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 balance. I look out at the girls, my girls, the deer on my property. I've never seen more flies this year than ever before. And it used to torment me, honestly. Years ago, I'd look out at my friends, flies biting them, tormenting them. It doesn't bother me anymore. Not that I don't feel for them, that's natural. Why? Balance. They're playing their part. And their part will play part in something else. And their part is playing a part in my life, in my understanding. So how can a fly biting a deer be part of my karma? Because I understand it instead of resisting it and wishing it weren't that way. Instead of going out and buying masks for the deer and just fly spray and stuff like, as if that would happen anyway. Do you understand? What's the key word? Justice, balance. And nobody who thinks something has happened to them is balanced. Therefore, how many of you are unbalanced? Fear of being unbalanced is karma. Let it soak in, Beatrice. I know you can. I know you've done it. Doug, one more.
Yes, we have one more written question, Guy, and then Robert popped into the queue. Do you want to take both?
No, we're getting late here, and I can see the people are starting to pick up pitchforks and torches.
Yeah. Your shield is missing.
We'll catch Robert around next time.
Okay. Here's a question from YouTube from Sabella. And that person asks, how do we overcome the karma of people around us? An example would be family members wanting me to share the responsibility for their shortcomings.
Isn't that a good one? Fortunately, I have an answer. There's this passage in the Old Testament. It used to bother me at first, but now I understand the wisdom in it. Perhaps you're familiar with it. Vengeance, justice is mine, saith the Lord. Vengeance is the translation of it, isn't me punishing somebody. It's, I understand your nature is your reward. My nature is my reward. I can't add, nor would I want to add to your nature more pain that it's already in, because the way you treat me and everyone else around you is an evidence of all the pain born out of everything that you don't want to know about yourself. I can't make you know anything about yourself at all. And then I don't know if you can follow this, but I'm going to go with it. You know, one of the things about awakening is that on one hand, you're freer than you could have imagined freedom. But on the other hand, it means you're free to suffer perfectly. Everybody else is suffering. Not wanting to know the pain another human being is in is your karma, because in refusing their pain, you're refusing the awareness of your own. And when you refuse the awareness of your own suffering, it can only be refused by replacing it with something that you believe will save you from it. Blaming them, hating that situation, finding some way to distract yourself, more food, more travel, fill in the blank. It's all an attempt to escape a pain you don't understand and that you blame on other human beings. On the other hand, to accept, and believe me, I wish it for you. I agree to die to my pain by agreeing to allow myself to be as aware of yours as I can. Please find me, help me bear that which I have found unbearable. Please help me bear this. Please help me bear this. Why? So that I don't make it unbearable for the human being who's already in that much pain. Please, Father. Please, Father. Teach me to suffer for you. Please teach me that. Please give me what I need to be able to do that. Please, I beg of you, so that I'm not somebody walking around wanting to punish those who I feel have punished me by their actions. Their actions are the result of their karma. They have refused justice, but you can justify it all for the sake of all in that moment when you understand it. We have student speakers now for 10 or 15 minutes. If anybody wants to speak, you're welcome to stay and share in that. Eric is coming up, and then Wayne.
Good morning, my name is Eric. I wonder if karma could be boiled down, a definition of it, to say that karma is the mirror, perfect reflection. I have some disparate thoughts, but they all connect. Shakespeare said that when no friends are by, men praise themselves. And I gotta quit saying I was thinking about a couple things the other day that actually relate to this talk, that the mind does. And one is that I don't know how many times during the day, it will make a prediction about something, like this person's gonna do that, I just know it, or this event is gonna go this way, there's no doubt about it, I know it. And it's just doing this all day long, and let's say it does 100. And maybe it's right about 50. But it conveniently forgets, and when it's right, it says, see, I knew it. And there's a strong sense of self that goes along with that. And then it conveniently forgets half the time at least that it was wrong. And another thing connected to that, connected to this judgment, certainty, is this mind will set up a position for itself and then sit back and wait for something to happen. In fact, it'll create the condition, try to create the condition for something to happen where it can say, see, I knew I was right to take this position.
Correct. Shakespeare said, "Oh, what a wicked web we weave when first we practice to deceive." And who do you think the first person is that's deceived by that web? Moi. Which makes me kind of a spider. Yeah, that's what he's describing. Sits in the web to catch what it has imagined and then creates conditions to ensure that something lands in it and gets stuck. And who gets stuck? Me.
Moi. Hi, everyone. My name is Wayne. This talk really brought up a lot in my own mind. I was thinking about John Lennon's song, "Instant Karma is Gonna Get Me." You better get yourself together. Join the human race. So I'm really glad you brought this whole idea about karma together, because we're always, actually, what we're getting is instant enlightenment if we can stay with it.
Yes.
And there's always justice. I love the idea that that only God is good. Because I grew up with a family that thought they were so good and perfect, and yet it was quite the opposite. But we see that there's there's always justice in what I'm receiving, and that it's that I am being completed in the moment by staying with it, because there is an incompleteness there that I don't understand,
yes,
but yet what I can see.
Yes.
Thank you.
Come on, Alan. Faith is the understanding of justice. Justice strengthens faith. Faith is the understanding God is good. But in order to have that faith strengthened, I have to find out, is this just? Sometimes it'll take 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. What difference does it make? How long does it take for that balance to show? Eventually, it proves itself. And when it proves itself, then your faith in justice has been rectified.
My name is Ellen. This talk made me see things in levels. Guy talked about the big picture, and then I guess the individual picture. It seems to me that at the highest level, karma is impersonal.
It is.
It's this constant rebalancing of everything, but way beyond our ability to understand it. And then that touches individuals. And then the way we respond to it, the way we resist it or we learn from it, that starts creating that individual karma. Is that?
Very much so. And I'll just add this, Ellen. She said, it's impersonal, something too big to understand. Did you ever go to the beach or someplace lovely? Did you join in? Did you understand what you were joining in?
Oh, no.
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 No, I don't understand why the ocean and the gulls and the sand and the rippling sound and the waves and the blue sky. I don't understand that, but I love it. Mm-hmm. And I join it. Can I join it by being someone who wants to understand it? It's like going to the Grand Canyon and reading a book on colors. No, I enjoin, I become part of. That's the magnificence of a human being, that the observer and the observed are already a singularity. The experience of it produces instantaneous justice, the mirror.
Right.
Yeah, good.
You know, while you were saying that, I just realized this talk explained Job.
Yes. Though he slay me, still do I love him.
Right.
Yeah.
And all of his friends saying, well, you must have done something that brought this about.
Yeah, why is that happening to me?
Yeah. And then God says to him, because Job asks God, why is this happening? And God says, this is not something you can understand. You weren't there when I created the world. You know, you can't understand this, but...
Out of love, I can agree with it.
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't it nice how things that you've read and wondered about for years and years and years, and suddenly you're right there with the writer of that scripture?
Hi, I'm Leah. You said familiar I is separation and real I is unity.
Yes.
And this example keeps coming to me. I love to walk and hike. And I've gone on hikes where I've done practical thought of, you know, downloading the map on the GPS because I'm alone and I don't want to get lost. But I make I always try to not look at any of the pictures of what I'm going to see in the hike. So that when I go on the hike, I'm just like, every moment is just a new moment. There's no past. I'm not taking any expectation with me. And it's just beauty, and you're part of nature. Just all the time, you feel it around you. Then there's familiarity. I do the same walk every day. And it's not that it's not beautiful where I'm walking, but I can see where I lose the unity in the familiar, in the, I'm going to come around this corner, and then the dog's going to do this, and then, you know, because these habits start forming.
Your mind is taking the walk.
Yes,
not Leah,
my mind is taking the walk.
because that's what I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Familiarity breeds what?
Contempt.
That's the meaning of it.
Yeah. And I can see where my work is to take the walk.
Yes.
But to take it,
Be walking.
be walking with the surprise around, with whatever comes.
If you're walking and you're attentive, you're aware of everything that's transpiring during the walk. If I'm aware of everything that's transpiring during the walk, then I am ceaselessly receiving impressions that only can be an impression because they're revealing what started the walk.
In that moment.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Experiment, experiment, experiment. Have a very nice afternoon. I'll see you on Wednesday.